Tonight on our front, we delve into the aftermath of the heavily contested Ejisu parliamentary by-election. We know that the New Patriotic Party emerged victorious, retaining their seats, but not without stirring controversy and raising questions about the integrity of the electoral process. Kwabena Boateng of the NPP secured 55.8% of the votes, fending off strong challenge from independent candidate and former member of parliament, Kwabena Ejisu, who garnered 43% of the vote, and much of the conversation has been around this. However, the turnout was relatively low. We are talking about some 49.1%, signaling potential disillusionment or disengagement among voters. We'll be exploring all of these factors. But before the elections, there were accusations of vote buying, which surfaced, which was vehemently denied by the ruling government and the Electoral Commission, dismissing any form of wrongdoing or allegation or plot to garner some sympathy votes. Furthermore, the integrity of the Electoral Commission came under scrutiny following the emergence of a video depicting what the Kwadaso MP calls giving of lunch money to the election officials. The EC swiftly withdrew these two officials implicated in the incident and initiated discussions with the Ghana Police Service for a thorough investigation. Among those embroiled in the controversy, I'm sure you are aware by now, is Professor Kingsley Nyako, Member of Parliament for the Kwadaso constituency, also in the Ashanti region, who was captured on camera, purportedly offering an envelope to electoral officers. Professor Nyako refuted claims of bribery, asserting the envelope contained lunch money and vehemently denying any attempt to influence the electoral process. UPFront tonight provides in-depth analysis and discussion on the implications of these developments for Ghana's democratic processes, electoral integrity, and the future of political engagement in the Republic of Ghana. Joining me tonight to help us navigate through the complexities of this Ejisu by-election and its fallouts and the broader implications and significance of the Ghanaian political landscape, mindful of the fact that the main election is some months down the line, is Professor Bafo Ajimandua. Prof, you're welcome. Ever distinguished governance expert. You're welcome, Prof, to our front. Certainly, if you could unmute, Prof, we could hear you. Yes, your introductory remarks, if you can hear me, sir, on your general assessment. Yes, Prof, I am happy to have you on board, and I'm grateful that you joined us tonight. First and foremost, I want to start from this point. This is an area that the MPP has been garnering between 78 to 84% consistently over the years. Why was this election in any way relevant, mindful of what has panned out eventually?
Thank you for having me, Raymond. It's a very interesting development because, as you rightly say, the Ejisu constituency has been the World Bank, so to speak, of the NPP. So ordinarily, this would have been an easy win for the party. But as you know, a day or two before the elections, the whole party machine moved to Ejisu, headed by the president, his vice president, the chief of staff, and many other heavyweights who came in the last minute to campaign for their candidate. That certainly signaled the seriousness with which the party attached to that. And of course, they should be serious because, as you know, we have a hung parliament. And these last 6 months of the incumbent government, if they were to lose further seats to the opposition, then of course, as we have seen the opposition doing, the government will be pushed to the wall on many legislative issues and policy issues. So in that respect, it was important for the ruling government to win the election. That's why I think they threw their whole weight behind their candidate in order not to lose to a competitor who also happened to have come from their own party.
Except that when a similar incident panned out in the Kumau constituency, which is also a big place for the MPP really, within the Ashanti region for that matter, there wasn't this much fear about the possibility of losing out in an election and the impact it would have on an already hung parliament. We know that Kwabena Ejisu had 3 terms in parliament. But equally, the Kumau independent candidate was formidable. Was it apparent from the beginning that Owusu Aduomi was going to pose a bigger threat to the MPP's success in this by-election?
I think yes, because Owusu Aduomi, as you know, was quite popular. Of course, not in all the parts of the constituency, but certainly in some very important areas, including his hometown of Ejisu, which I happen to come from where I'm talking to you, by the way.
Okay, that's interesting, yes.
Yes, I did take a personal look. I observed the local elections in my hometown. I don't have a vote here, so I didn't vote here, but I did go around a bit to see what was going on. I saw quite some interesting developments. So Owusu Aduomi certainly from the beginning was going to be a threat to the party. As I say, he was quite popular. He provided a number of amenities. That is why when the president came to town, he was clear in his words that, look, I'm the one who even authorized roads. So if you don't vote for the one who's going to work with me, then don't expect to get more roads or something, a statement to that effect, because there was a threat. And I think if you consider that Owusu Aduomi is not in the party, and that this party is very strong in the area, then you have to begin to question why was it necessary for the president and his whole team to move camp to this town just 2 days or so to the elections. Because as you rightly said, Owusu Aduomi really was a threat. And if in fact his participation was going to draw this strong response from the party, then certainly they had to fight hard to ensure. And even then, you see that we got about what, 30, almost 40% of the vote.
Yes, 43%, yeah.
Exactly, and the winner get about 57 or so percent. So that's a big drop from their previous election where the MP won by a wide margin. So I think in a larger context, this will reflect a more serious threat to the ruling party in the upcoming elections. Because as I said earlier, if the Ejisu constituency is one of their well banks, so to speak, and they have to fight this hard to win the victory, then I'm afraid that they may have to fight much harder to win the bigger battle that lays ahead of them.
Now, the history has been for by-elections, mostly when other parties or independent people win it, they end up losing subsequently or in the next big election. So to many people, it was really not a big deal. We have seen the examples where even when the opponent took over in the by-election or the ruling government took over in the by-election, the stronghold of their opponent, they ended up losing after an election or even the next election. Many were worried about the President of the Republic of Ghana and his commentary on the grounds. Mr. President was clear in his mind that nobody could allege possible wrongdoing in the election. He moved on to accuse Aduomi of fraternizing with either the elephant or not the elephant, the umbrella or the monarch, that is the Movement for Change grouping, right? And the understanding we had of that is that even if the president had to descend, even big party, big weights had to be on the ground, then it surely posed a great threat to the MPP. But was it worth the kind of attention that was given it by the ruling party?
I think yes. It really deserved that attention because a loss would have been a big blow to them. Psychologically, this party would have been seen to have lost in the upcoming elections. Ejisu is traditionally, by all imaginations, NPP stronghold. So if the NPP were to lose this by-election, I tell you, a lot of people will be forced to revise their notes for the upcoming election. So it explains why the home machinery, as I said earlier, had to move camp here and indulge in all kinds of perhaps illegalities in order to win these elections. And I'm not surprised they had to do that because Owusu Aduomi constituted a very formidable challenge to the party.
As an indigene yourself, one who had been on the ground during the election, there are things that are reported. Prior to the main day, During people allege possible collusion or possible rigging. They talked about the plans by the governing party and other people with the intent to subvert the will of the people in Ejisu. During the election, they raised similar concerns. Then other incidents happened. However, we had a turnout of 49.1%. We know that by-elections are not really known for heavy turnouts. But for a stronghold with such a competitive force, which are big wigs coming down and actually throwing themselves into the election, is this turnout indicative of some disillusionment with politics in general, or it's just following the trend with by-elections?
Mixed, I should say. It's really mixed because it is true that generally by-elections are not very exciting for people, but this one was particularly exciting because of the candidates involved and the fact that a strong member of the party had broken away to go independent. So that in itself brought some excitement to the process in the Ejisu. On the other hand, it's also true to say that the low turnout will be a reflection of the general despondency of citizens about governance. Really. There's no question in my mind at all that overall Ghanaians are not very happy with the way we are practicing democracy. They are not happy with the way we are being governed. They are not happy with the economic downturn that is hitting the pockets of almost everybody. So people are really disenchanted. Well, so the low turnout will be a reflection of that, no doubt in my mind at all. So again, as we approach the general elections, I'm hoping that our politicians will find a way to present better programs to attract citizens to respond quite massively to their responsibility by going to the polls in December.
If it was only Kwabena Owusu-Aduomi, and let's be clear, the man lost to the current member of parliament who recently died. So, and he went ahead to contest the regional party chairmanship election, and he also lost woefully. He performed poorly. Why would the party be eager, incensed, to take on such a man who had evidence more recently of no electoral success? Again, the things we heard about what was the campaigning strategy on the ground, the projects that were being done immediately, the handouts that were being given. In fact, one of the people representing Mr. Aduomi in the strong room had cause to say this was monocracy at play. Inducing or getting people to come and vote with inducements of different kinds is what he had alleged in this case. I'm not sure if you personally saw evidence of this, but what do you think about an election in a stronghold with a competitor whose evidence of most recent election is losing to a dead MP and also performing woefully at the regional level? Did they require that level of infusion of resources to win the election?
It's an excellent question that we have posed, and this question goes beyond the particular elections we are discussing, because the issue of money influencing our political processes has been with us for a while, and it appears in almost all by-elections, as well as, of course, on a larger scale in general elections. So this question goes beyond this particular election. I think the infusion of money and the other quote-unquote illegalities that occurred, which are again common in our elections, raises more questions beyond again this one. Because you see, it's the democracy that we are practicing and how the practice has been over the past 30 years. And the fact that we don't seem to be worried, so to speak, enough for us to take action, because almost after every election, you guys in the media, civil society observers, political party activists themselves come to confirm that money has changed hands. They all do it. And in fact, not long ago, some party stalwarts, both in the NDC and the NPP, came public to say, look, this is what we do. It's part of what we do. And we citizens we nod our heads and we just bemoan, lament, and life goes on. So I think the bigger issue here is if, in fact, we do not want our democracy to be monetized the way it is, then we have a duty to decide what to do, because there's something we can do about it. Nothing is closed in democracy. The beauty of democracy, it allows countries, based on their culture, their experiences, to modify the way they practice it. What you cannot modify in democracy are the universal values, what you call principal democracy, which relates to the freedoms and the liberties and all. That's what you can't modify. All of us need that for our protection and our well-being. But when it comes to these mechanics, elect people to represent us, we pass in this law to do that, we are free to recreate, to innovate. And here, let me bring you another thing, because I read the comments by a good friend of mine, I believe you read it too, by Professor popularly called Azan, who is talking about even questioning the need to have a by-election.
In the first place.
Exactly. His point was that the Constitution says 3 months with elections is the only period you can't have by-elections. Anytime below that, you should have by-elections. So he's calling for maybe up to 1 year. I have a more radical solution. If you look at the way we are utilizing money in the process, we can decide that when a party wins a seat, it wins the seat for 4 years. So in the course of the 4 years, if there's any attrition due to death or injury or incapability of the incumbent, the party that won that seat for 4 years should allow their constituency to nominate 2 people for the national executive to choose one. No elections.
So it's an internal process. It's an internal process.
It's an internal process.
Not even a primary. There won't even be a primary election.
Precisely.
Why say?
Because this is allowed. It's democratic for us to decide what we want for ourselves. It doesn't infringe any democratic rule.
But Prof, how about if an independent person happy to have been the member of parliament without a party source, without having to spring off his authority or mandate from a political party first and foremost?
An independent candidate can be endorsed by a party if that's the person they want, right?
No, because you said an individual from the same party or 2 people can be brought up for them to be selected to actually go to parliament. I was asking whether the member of parliament, being an independent, will be subjected to a similar process and what criteria will be used in replacing such a person.
Excellent question. All that means is that in thinking through these processes, we have to think about the possibility of an independent candidate.
Okay.
And how we bring that person into the process. And I think by brainstorming, we can find a way to either include the independent candidate or create a different path for the independent candidate. I guess the point here is that we can minimize the cost of elections in our country, the pain and tension that it breeds, and the money that has become part and parcel of our political processes. So all I'm saying is that, like Azan has said, there are ingenious ways of recreating the practice of democracy. Nothing stops us from doing that. So if after 30 years, the parties are admitting to this money being the essence of how we run our politics, civil society knows that. And I can tell you, I was here, I went to the streets, and all these young people, 100 cities is all they took to change their votes. 100 cities. And I saw the location of the one paying the money. He's sitting in the car. People line up after casting their vote. They'll go and collect the 100 cities. Oh, really? For them, the 100. I'm sorry. I'm not giving you a hearsay or second-hand information. I witnessed. So it's open. And what I'm saying is not new to the politicians. They do it all the time. If we can be honest with ourselves, we can admit that this process is not a good one, that we need a better way of managing our politics. It's as simple as that. But you see, Ghanaians, we are hypocrites. Okay. At times we hate to talk the truth, and therefore we continue to do the bad things that we've been doing over there. But I'm telling you, from what I saw, which is not new, I've seen many of this in previous elections. Because I've watched elections for many years in this country, and the political parties, the politicians know they use money to influence the vote. If they can admit it, then all of us can come together and rethink how we do our politics.
Prof, permit me to query this proposal that you have actually put forward. Some will say the people have a direct responsibility of electing their representatives to parliament. Why should we take that power and hand it over to a political party, a smaller group of people, to determine the fate of the constituents in this case? Will we not be limiting rather than expanding the space of democracy and active involvement and active selection or direct selection of your own representatives in this case?
Very fair question and legitimate question that you've asked. Look, in South Africa, not all South Africans will go select their president. Do you know that?
Well, interesting.
The winning party selects their leader who becomes the president. Is it democratic or not?
Well, as some will construe same as democracy.
Not some. It is an acceptable practice.
Yes, elsewhere.
Elsewhere,
yes.
And this is elsewhere too. Ghana is elsewhere. And nobody from anywhere in the world can come and tell us that is not democratic. In our sense of representativeness, sure, you already have people, the party represents the people in the constituency. You popularly elected someone, but if the unfortunate incident happens for demise of the person or incapability or whatever, we are saying the party that captured that seat did so for 4 years. So during that period, that party should hold the seat, right? Is it democratic? Yes. So in the course of the 4 years, if that party loses a parliamentarian, that same party then will have the right to continue the 4 years by selecting someone to replace him. What is wrong with that?
Permit me further to explore another matter which will exercise the minds of those who may have difficulties with the process. This is to solve the problem of moneycracy, inducement of people or the pumping of sometimes state resources into elections to influence people. The key question here is that if moneycracy is a problem, why are we not dealing with it directly, but rather finding creative ways of avoiding the contest in the first place so the money will not be used? Why are we pretending that enforcement of the law, mindful of the fact that this is a criminal conduct, should not be what we should be doing immediately?
Raymond, you know too well, you know better than me. In this country, have you ever had anybody prosecuted successfully for infringing any electoral law? The police.
Not that I know of.
When I went around, I saw a poster of a candidate almost next to the polling station. I called the policeman on duty and said, "Sir, do you know this is illegal to have a poster as if campaigning on that day, posted just next to the polling station?" And the policeman said, "Well, then I have to." I said, "Go and talk to the election officials." The guy went there. One official accompanied him. They came and removed it. I was just standing by. I was not even in the picture.
Okay.
I requested them to do their duty. The point here is that the police that we think can arrest, at times, they are not even there for that. They are primarily there for, to maintain peace. They may not be very conversant with the electoral laws. So if the electoral officers are busy at the desk doing their work, all kinds of infractions go on. All right. So your point about why don't we find a way to stop the moneycracy rather than find a way, other ways to ignore it? We cannot find any way to stop people passing. Somebody gave money and said it was for lunch. Somebody will come and say for water, or it's for his transport. I've heard a big politician argue not too long ago that yes, we have a duty to give our delegates money to go back home, money to eat. How do you argue against that? Because people have to travel indeed. And most of these guys who come there may be jobless. So they need something to eat. You see what I'm talking about?
I get your point.
So when you create opportunities for these processes to occur, then you are creating more opportunities for money to be used to win votes. So let's seek to limit these opportunities without necessarily denying the rights of our citizens to exercise their franchise.
And that's an interesting perspective. Because you brought in the element of lunch, may I then ask you the question related to this? A distinguished professor of educational psychology, one who previously taught at the University of Ghana Psychology Department, was caught on tape handing an envelope to one of the election officials, in this case, the presiding officer, when the ballot issuer was also looking on. Now, this video, which has gone viral, filmed by my colleague, Ohemen Terrier, when he was doing his own stand-up on the ground, has raised very serious questions. And I'm sure you are aware that today, the Electoral Commission first removed the two officials. Secondly, sought to do some preliminary investigation and came out to say the Member of Parliament sought to give them lunch money. Now, when you move it into that perspective, the Member of Parliament has been speaking to. He says there was no attempt at inducement. There was no attempt at bribing anybody. He just sought to solve a problem of a starving staff of the nation, public servants of a sort who were performing public duty, who were starving, and he sought to cure that problem of an empty stomach that they were operating on. That, according to some members of his party, is a sign of kindness. In fact, the word he used on the ground was favor that he was doing to these people. Generally, what do you think about the incident itself and the immediate reactions after it?
Well, you see, we are all smart people. Ghanaians are very smart. We all have good reasons to explain things that we think are unpardonable. And I think the arguments they are using certainly cannot be faulted because generally, or somewhere, we can give people free money, free lunch, because we are kind-hearted, we are charitable, and on and on. So all these arguments can be used, and I cannot rebuke them for that. But the fact is, Election Day is a very special day. Presiding officers, these are officers of the Electoral Commission, are not ordinary people on that day. They are there to play a role on behalf of the state. And the state, therefore, has a responsibility to feed them. If the Electoral Commission is saying that they are incapable of feeding their staff when they go to the field, and therefore they are going to rely on charity, kind-hearted individuals to do so, we should be clear on that. Secondly, if this person you mentioned was an ordinary person, who saw these guys really, and I've done that before, by the way. When I used to go to the northern region years back to supervise elections, at times I buy food because I see they don't even have water, and I do that. But I know today if I do it, because of partisanship, somebody was, oh, he's an NPP guy or he's an NDC guy, he's doing that. So today I'll be more careful to do it. In this particular case, this is a political activist, politician, you're a parliamentarian, and you know that the EC is a neutral, independent entity, a referee. And a partisan going to do that some favor can easily be interpreted differently. So if I were that person, I would have been more circumspect in going public to release that envelope to the electoral officer. But in this case, it seems to me, my good friend Kingsley was not circumspect. That's why he's getting the backlash that he's getting.
The reaction from the Electoral Commission, first, they pulled out the stuff. Secondly, they did investigation and told us what happened. And thirdly, they are saying that the police has commenced. They have reached out to the police for the commencement of some form of investigation by way of criminality. Are these steps in the right direction?
Oh, yes. If the Electoral Commission believes that the infractions have been made by this gentleman, why not? Let the law take its course. We want to see that we're in a country of the rule of law. So if, according to the Electoral Commission, that was electoral infraction, then I think they're on the right path, referring the case to the police for further investigations. And once the police is able to establish the infraction, then of course the necessary action should be taken. But as I see it, we already are getting responses. It was something from the heart. He's a very kind-hearted guy. So he gave the money so that they don't stop.
Now, the police, we have not heard a word from them on this matter. We know that more recently they have been swift in actually issuing responses to the public when it comes to incidents of this sort. Is it a bit surprising that the police has, in the last 48 hours, not said anything at all?
I don't know. Maybe in their own mind, this is not an issue that will fly. And in my own mind, too, frankly, it's much ado about nothing. You see? Because the response we are getting already tells you where it's going to go. Unless the Electoral Commission has direct rules against politicians and others giving lunch to people. Otherwise, I don't know what they're going to do with that. As I said, I have bought lunch water for electoral officers when I used to go to the north to observe elections years back. I have not been to the field for many years now. But I used to do that because at times you see them famished and they cannot leave the desk to go somewhere to buy food. Maybe they should have come with a lunch pack. That would have been the most sensible thing. But when election runs over time and they've sat there for, I don't know, 6 hours or something, certainly they are human. They have certain human needs. So that provision, I think, must be looked at. That's why I said...
But Prof, the EC has clarified that they provide food for their staff.
If they do, then there's a question for this gentleman to answer. How much food do they need? If they do, then there's a question to be answered.
Now, a group calling itself Election Watch Ghana, which is a civil society group, has petitioned the IGP to investigate the Member of Parliament for what they describe as electoral misconduct. I am here to hear the specific misconduct that they reference and the law for which they say the man should be held responsible. But they say prosecuting the MP is crucial to restoring public confidence in Ghana's democratic institutions and upholding the rule of law. Do you think this rises to a level of something that should or would be prosecuted?
You said yourself that there seems to be ambiguity over the precise law against the action of the MP. And that's where it's a gray area, and we don't know for sure whether there are any real infractions. But I like the way the civil society group is taking this up. It's important for civil society groups to alert the society to these kinds of incidents that occur. So in that respect, it's good. But I think we should wait, since the police has already picked this matter. Let's be patient and see. This is not a shooting incident. It's not a violent incident. It's just somebody who lacked discretion at the time, as I said earlier. Because if I were a political actor like himself, I won't do this. But at times we all lose a little bit of our senses and misbehave. So let the police pick it up and investigate and see what comes out of this.
In Parliament, a former member of Parliament has also been asking that Parliament takes a view on this matter. He believes they have some code of office that makes it impossible for MPs to misconduct themselves. He believes that his colleagues should not protect their own, but rather deal with the matter. Do you ever see this happening?
Oh, if it's coming from that angle, it's a political angle. I will know that they all play the same game. Mm-hmm. In previous elections, I've seen NDC people, NPP people all doing the same act. Me, I'm unfazed by these things.
Okay.
Let's face the facts. You see, it's easier for the opposition to take this for political reasons, to make their points. So you have to be careful who is making what statement. I did support the civil society group that came up. You remember? I said, pick it up. It's good. But if a politician picks it up, it's politics. It's all politics.
Now, that's an interesting perspective. Now, let's move beyond the election day and the things that happen on the ground. What does Ejisu by-election say, or what indicators can we pick out from Ejisu by-elections about December 2024?
First, I think the ruling party has a lot of work to do to attract its own members to come to the poll in Ejisu. By extension, perhaps, the Ashanti region also. They have a lot of work to do because this by-election indicates strongly the widespread discontent among his own members, the ruling party members, and if they are not careful, they might just sit and don't go to the polls at all. So they have to work hard to compensate for whatever that they've not done previously. That's the first thing they have to do. Secondly, we have to watch out for the possibility of this sentiment here, this apathy, so to speak, not becoming a national phenomenon. Otherwise, perhaps we can experience the lowest voter turnout in our recent history. Because so far we've been doing very well, around 70, 72 all the time. Now, just one can indicate a slip in the coming elections if the majority of this ruling party members decide to sit out. The third one is certainly the money aspect, which I've already said has been with us for many years, which the two parties seem to endorse. Unfortunately, even if they are not endorsing it officially, they're doing nothing about it, and they continue to do it all the time. So I'm afraid that the path that we are treading for our democracy is going to slip. And all these are leading to the loss of confidence and trust in those who govern us. And in fact, in the political parties that we have, the two dominant ones. That's why there have been widespread calls for a third force, because people are disenchanted with these two parties. And I tell you, if there's a way for a third force to emerge, it will be exciting for me, for many other people. Because I personally do not know what any of these parties will be doing if they win the elections in December 2024. I don't know the program they have that is going to convince me that they are serious about getting this country out of the grips of the international financial institutions, the IMF, World Bank, and the others. I don't know if these parties are serious about making sure that Ghanaians begin to take commanding heights of the economy instead of foreigners taking control of the economy. I don't know if any of these parties are serious about reinventing governance to do away with so many of the bad practices that are retarding progress, including the excessive powers of the executive, including how we have neglected decentralization, which is required by the Constitution, and concentrating everything at the center, killing district assemblies, everybody being made dependent on the central government. That is not good governance. Democracy works at the grassroots. That's where issues stand, the district level.
Prof, since you mentioned a third force, the other issues you mentioned, permit me to explore this particular angle too, because already we have the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, which started off with Alan Chairmantain's Movement for Change, now getting others like the National Interest Movement and others back into its fold. You appear to lean towards such a grouping. Is the Alliance for Revolutionary Change the third force you are looking for?
Well, examine all the points I made, what I think Ghanaians generally want, and find out if that alliance is on that kind of track. I haven't really studied their manifesto, if any, so I'm sorry I cannot respond to that. But I've laid out what generally we're expecting to see. If they are given a strategy for the nation to say, look, these are what we want to do to limit our dependence on the international economy. They're every year going to the IMF, 17th time. What are they talking about? This economy is not in our control. Look, recently the IMF even told the government that they cannot restrict importation. We cannot restrict importation. In other words, we have to continue to import, but they don't bother about our export. You see, so we are in a dangerous situation where our economy is we're going to lose control. And we'll be, eternally be indebted to the outside. And that is not good for the country, the future of the country. So we want to hear them telling us what specific programs, strategies that they have. We want to hear them tell us how governance should be restructured. In fact, development should be at the community level, not at the national level. You don't want ministers determining where they locate chips compound and toilets in the village and all. That's not the work of ministers. That's not the work of presidents. When the president said, yeah, I have to sign every road contract to be approved, of course, I think
he said the buck stops with him, that without his approval, no road contract is done.
I think he was just boosting a bit because not every road contract goes with this. The minister has a certain threshold. You know, if it's a huge national, if they wanted to do a dual carriage from Kumasi to Accra, a huge involving $500 million, certainly the president should know. But if you are constructing 3 kilometers to a village, the president will not come into the picture. Anyway, the point is that these are the things that we need to be talking about, that our development should be community-based.
I dare ask you this question about when you raise Ghana needs a third force. It sounds more like a fanciful idea than a reality that can happen anytime soon. The evidence suggests all that third parties have done in this country, or independent candidates have done, or third forces have done in this country, is to push an election to a second round. They have not been potent enough to win and change the fortunes of this country. The evidence does not back the emergence of a strong, buoyant one that can sweep votes and make the changes that you're talking about.
You're right, Raymond, you are right. Because no so-called third force has emerged to be able to mobilize the resources to be able to put across attractive programs. Look, these two parties are very strong. You cannot underestimate them. Their roots are all over the country. So for any third force to emerge, your presentation should be attractive. Right now, what we are lacking in the country is leadership with integrity, leadership with credibility. If somebody can emerge and is respected as someone with integrity, someone with credibility, someone who can command the trust of the people, I can tell you, because what we have currently lacks these values. We lack them. And I think someone can shake them up. Even if the third force doesn't win, it can shake them up for them to sit right, to sit straight. Because so far, they seem to be like a decical about what needs to be done to make this country really get on the right track.
Prof, I'll take a break. When I return from this break, we shall be concluding and exploring other governance issues in the Republic of Ghana. My guest is a man I am speaking to from Ejisu, where elections were held a couple of days ago. Governance experts, by all standards and qualifications, some of the best men we have in the country actually learned from him. Professor Bafo Ajimandia. After the break, we'll be exploring a lot more beyond what you have done so far. Thank you. Back to UPFront. My name is Raymond Dalkwa, and tonight on UPFront, we've been doing a post-mortem of the Ejisu by-elections, and who better to help us analyze and understand and put it in the proper perspective than that distinguished Professor Bafo Ajimandia. And you may know that he is from Ejisu. More importantly, he is from Ejisu, where he's talking to us now. So he has a feel, understanding, and proper grounding, not only on the governance issues, but the local issues that informs elections, not only there, but across the country. Prof, you're welcome back to UPFront.
Thank you very much.
So we left off at the conversation where we're exploring the feasibility of a third party or an independent option than the duopoly of the NPP and the NDC going into this election. And of course, the difficulty has always been, can they make the needed impact that many have called for? There are other questions around this state today that, because we have some time left, I can explore them with you. You've talked about useful lessons for election 2024. From Ejisu by-election, what are the key pointers you can put out there about how 2024 is likely to be. For example, when it comes to security for the election, when it comes to monocracy in our elections, when it comes to undermining or promoting the goodwill or the mandate of the people, do you think these things will be safeguarded? And the conduct of the various parties in an election, do you think this is dress rehearsal for a bigger problem ahead?
In a way, yes. What happened in this constituency may reflect the bigger thing to occur in December. At the same time, also provide some guidance to what we need to do. In terms of security, I think the police did a very good job. In fact, anywhere I passed, I saw policemen at polling stations, disciplined and just calmly and watching, and there were no reported incidents, so far as I recall. There were no violence. So I think if this is what is going to happen in December, then I would say our police are really on track to do their professional job. And I commend the police for doing their job so well. Of course, this is a small constituency, so they could afford to bring so many policemen to maintain law and order. And people they comported themselves. There was no misbehavior anywhere. The money issue is, I guess, the bigger and more serious matter. Whether in the coming elections, we are, as a people, as a country, we are going to be able to control the politicians from using money to buy votes. As I said earlier, this is not a new phenomenon. We've been seeing this all these years during the elections. And unfortunately, the political elite themselves and other stakeholders have not picked this as something that should be addressed at the national level. So the parties continue to do that. And I guess the prevalence of poverty also compels citizens, ordinary people, to also sell their conscience and their goals for a pittance, maybe 100 or 50 cities. And this is going on, been going on. For the politicians, it's an advantage they have. In recent elections, Raymond, you remember, some politicians were saying, look, we have money, we're going to buy, save enough dollars to buy the election, on and on and on. So that one, I'm afraid, we're going to see the same thing come December 7th in this country. And as I say, I personally do not know how we stop this unless we are willing to change the mode of elections.
Okay.
The nature of elections, we can do that. So these are the two things I think we should be looking for as we move towards the next general elections.
In an unrelated matter, since your party works will be generally, I mean, there's a recent furor about whether or not the executive president can command chiefs to be on their feet and greet him, especially when his presence is commanded, or his people can do so. It is the view of the chieftaincy minister that it's only fair that people do that. Some have raised concerns also about this particular development. From where you sit, is this a governance issue? Is there conflict between the legitimate state authority and traditional authority of a sort at this level, or is much ado about nothing?
It's a whole lot to do about everything. A whole lot to do about everything. You see, I have said it on some forums that one of the oversights, something we really didn't take seriously on the part of those who wrote the Constitution, is finding a critical role of chiefs in the new governance structure that we created. Mind you, Ghana is not like many other African countries where chieftaincy institutions were abolished or diminished or anything of the sort. I was in Tanzania. Nyerere succeeded in suppressing chieftaincy. So there is no problem with the traditional authority. All authority is state authority. In Ghana, chiefs are very strong because they continue to own the land. And you cannot have a successful governance in this country without defining a positive role for chiefs to play. So, if traditionally chiefs have been accorded certain protocols, certain respect and all, And we have a new structure. And in this new structure, the president is a sovereign head. He's the head of state. There's no one in this country above the president. In that respect, a special respect should be accorded that office. And I'm somebody who will say, your hatred for Akufo-Addo, your dislike for him, should not lead you to denigrate the office of the president. I'm serious about this. He's our sovereign head. So we should respect our chiefs, and ordinarily, presidents go around ordering people to stand up. Naturally, they do. So if people are not standing up, there must be a reason why people are not standing up for him. And in my candid opinion, it's perhaps a lot of people have lost respect for him as a president. People have lost trust in him as a president. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to go publicly to command people to stand up. You see, that is my position. So the position is that, look, we should not denigrate the president. It's the supreme office of the land. It's above all chieftaincy in the country. No chief is bigger than the president. And I will say this on record. No chief is bigger than the president. In some cases, you see that when the president visits a chief, a big chief or something like that, some big chief decide to stand up and embrace the president, hug the president. It's a sign of respect, a sign of mutual respect and all. So if today some people are refusing to stand, not even the big chief, the small chief, or whatever that is, then it means that there's something wrong with the person occupying the office of the president. And that's what the problem should lie. But I'm saying that despite that, those who are making commentaries and everything, they should understand that Nana Akufo-Addo will not be president for, in fact, he has only barely 6 months. The office of the president will be there all the time. So we should make a distinction between that sacred office, a sovereign head of state, and individuals who occupy it.
I'm most grateful to you. I am most grateful to you, Prof. My time is up, and I'm sure we can do this some other time and explore a lot more governance issues. But I'm most grateful to you, Prof, for your time tonight. And ladies and gentlemen, that's why we end today's edition of UPFront. My name is Raymond Alqua.